Hello, everyone, and welcome to the virtual Happy Half Hour. We'll be getting started in just a moment. As a reminder, we will be recording today's session, and it will be sent out to all participants later today. All right, welcome, as I said, to the virtual Happy Half Hour for Friday, April 23rd. And today's topic is partnering with marketing to drive new opportunities. So we're going to be talking about that age-old marketing versus sales debate today. I am Michelle Richardson, Vice President of Sales Performance Research here at the Brooks Group. And I am joined by my co-host, Russ Sherrod, our Director of Sales Strategy Effectiveness. Hi, Russ.
Hi there, Michelle. Good to be with you again. Back in office, not trying to do this from the front seat of a car at Dodger Stadium. One of the things we've talked about on these webinars before is that new opportunities is the most difficult part of selling in a pandemic. People have struggled to find them. And I was thinking about this getting ready, and really, I don't know that it was a totally new thing. I think it's kind of an acceleration of trends we've already seen. I went back, 50 to 60% of all business buyers actually are pre-screening before the pandemic. We're pre-screening the vendors they wanted to talk to. And we've seen some research that the younger the buyer, the less they want that human interaction. So like a lot of things, the pandemic didn't really change everything as much as it just accelerated. And so if the new opportunities are going to be buyer driven, we're going to talk about how do we engage them? How do we help them know how to engage and get with us better? So I'm looking forward to today's discussion and where we're going to go, Michelle.
Same here, same here. And our topics. We'll be talking about the partnership payoff. And I know, Russ, you're going to dig into what that actually looks like when marketing and sales works together.
Yep. And we'll also, we forgot to mention our sponsor. Our sponsor is Impact Selling, both virtual and in-person sessions returning this summer. So we're going to talk a couple of times about the sales process in this. So if you are part of an organization that's looking to polish up your sales process to be able to kind of come back with a little more fire, we'd love to talk to you about Impact and what it can do. Sales and marketing, as you mentioned, Michelle, have a history of what I'll call non-cooperation. We'll talk a little bit about why that is, but let's start with kind of what do you benefit? What's the benefit for folks who do cooperate together? And I think you've got some data on that, Michelle.
I do, as always, bringing the data to you today. So what really is the payoff on a partnership with marketing? I think that we can all agree that sales and marketing alignment is the hot topic. And when sales and marketing work together, good things happen, right? And so LinkedIn commissioned a survey with Forrester Consulting, and they looked at sales and marketing and how they can work together. This survey was done in the middle of 2020. And they acknowledged in this survey that sales and marketing together were going to be the big drivers of business recovery. And as Russ, you mentioned, buyers are a little more reluctant to engage now. They're waiting longer to engage with sales. And so what can sales and marketing do together in order to really bring those customers in and increase the quality of those conversations? So in this study, LinkedIn and Forrester Consulting found that these are B2B sales and marketing professionals. 85% say that sales and marketing leaders say when sales and marketing alignment it's the largest opportunity for improving business performance today. It is critical for business growth, especially right now when those new prospects are hard to find, they're hard to come by. So it's critical for improving business performance. And 90% of sales and marketing professionals also agree that when your marketing initiatives and your messaging are aligned with sales, your customer experience is positively impacted. So not only are you bringing more people in the door and you're getting better business results, better revenue, but the experience of the customer is positively impacted and they're more likely to stay with you. So this study found that there really are 4 key areas that can foster stronger, more sustainable alignment between marketing and sales. Now, they're not saying that marketing and sales have to agree on everything. Marketing and sales together bring different perspectives. They both bring their own level of value to the relationship. But there's 4 areas that will really help foster a stronger relationship, and that's strategy, process, content and messaging, and culture. And so the intent is to bring these organizations, these 2 departments together for collaboration. But that doesn't always work in reality. So there are some gap areas that both sales and marketing professionals need to be aware of when you are working together. So 96% of sales and marketing professionals see challenges with strategy alignment. So in many cases, sales and marketing are collaborating on the same campaigns. They're working towards targeting the same customers or personas, but your success metrics are different, right? So you're trying to work towards a common purpose, but you're measuring success differently. In many cases, sales and marketing have different leaders, different leadership. And so that drives a little bit of a gap between, and you have different KPIs, goals, and objectives. So one thing to consider is, do you have a common scorecard? Do you have the same definitions between sales and marketing for what a marketing qualified lead is, or a sales qualified lead, or even a sales accepted lead? So getting some alignment together on those metrics, KPIs, goals, and objectives will help when you go into really execute tactically on a sales and marketing initiative. You'll work together better. Now, process alignment. 97% of sales and marketing professionals report issues with process alignment. That's because oftentimes we have different departmental processes. Our tools are not integrated. You may have somebody from marketing collect data from a lead. When it gets passed on to sales to follow up, that information is not followed up on or is not passed on. So it creates an awkward situation for your customer. The systems just don't talk to each other. So make sure to really improve that collaboration between sales and marketing, that you have common systems, that you're examining your processes, and the information handoff is smooth.
You know, Michelle, I was working with a client not long ago who demonstrated this really well. They had purchased seats for their CRM system for all of their salespeople, but they only provided one shared seat for marketing. And what it did, and that was just both marketing and product management. And so what it did was any information gathered by the sales team was not easily transferred back to the group. And so it really did kind of get in the way of process and communication.
That's a great example. And I think that happens, from what I've heard too, it happens more often than we might like to think that it does, and it should. And that's frustrating for the customer. So you're just making it harder for sales to continue to work that lead, because you've got a frustrated customer who's now having to back up through their situation. And marketing may not be getting, you may just not have good quality data moving through.
You frustrate the sales team because they keep saying no one listens to the data I'm gathering in the field. And the reason is it's because there's not a conduit by which it can get back cleanly, through a system. So right.
Great point. Another challenge that marketing and sales are facing in their alignment and collaboration is with content and messaging. So 97% say that their content messaging is not aligned. So if you think about it, oftentimes you've got marketing creating messaging that's very product focused. We want to or it's brand awareness focused, right? We want to bring the leads in. We want to raise awareness of our offerings. Sales is looking for content that's more solution focused. How do we help address the customer's biggest challenges, their needs and wants? So you've got 2 departments operating in silos, creating different messaging. And again, for the customer, that becomes very, very frustrated, and it's just making it even harder for the sales team to really feel like they've got the right support. And in fact, we've worked with customers who have demonstrated and talked to us about these types of situations where, marketing creates these great campaigns and they hand them off to sales, and sales says, well, these really don't apply to my customers. They're not aligned to the personas. They don't really reflect the issues that our customers are telling us they're having. So again, it's going back to having that level of collaboration and communication. And finally, there's cultural alignment challenges. And I actually think this kind of is really the underlying theme out of all of these. If you can get your cultural alignment squared away, then the rest of it's going to follow. You're going to have better strategy alignment, better process alignment, and better content and messaging alignment. So 93% of sales and marketing professionals say they have these cultural alignment challenges. There's no coordinated planning between the two departments. There are communication gaps. So they may be trying to work together, but the level of communication just isn't there. So for instance, you may want to consider, if this is something that your organization is experiencing, having joint meetings between sales and marketing. Here at the Brooks Group, we have a weekly, what we call SMARKeting meeting, and our sales team and our marketing team meet together. We go through a common scorecard. We talk through campaigns together. So there's a level of communication, and again, I think that bubbles up to all of the other areas to tighten that alignment.
Michelle, one of the things I found in getting ready for this webinar, a slightly older LinkedIn report came from it actually came from 2016, so 5 years ago. But they said this lack of alignment between sales and marketing, they calculated to cost companies about 10% of potential revenue every year. And so if you think about the difference in profitability between a company doing X, doing 110% of X, it's a significant cost and burden on organizations.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking of sales leaders sitting out there going 10% of revenue, out the door. We're doing the mental calculations, but that's a significant number. And again, we talked about customer frustration and the potential for for that to occur. There was a Salesforce study that said 76% of customers, and this is from 2020, expect consistent interactions across departments. So marketing, sales, even customer service. So they want that seamless experience, and they're going to vote with their pocketbooks, right? They're going to take their business to the places where they're going to have that seamless experience. And 54% say it feels like marketing, sales, and service are disconnected, right? So they don't share information. And so again, it's a disjointed process.
And so frankly, I think that's one of the places that you really want to start with this, is understanding that from your customer's perspective, they don't see three different groups. They see the company. And so it's your internal challenge to be one face, one voice, one message, one reaction, if you will, to the customer requests.
Yeah, great point. And ties right into, instead of thinking inwardly, right? So sales and marketing and what we do in silos, one generates leads and one works the pipeline and closes sales. Just think about what together you work that customer experience. And I think, again, the opportunities will come from there.
Mm-hmm.
So as Russ mentioned, today our session is sponsored by Impact Selling. And, we talked about marketing and sales aligning around a common process. And one of the first things that we often recommend for organizations, particularly with sales and marketing, is that you have a sales process and that marketing is aligned and aware of that process as well. So everyone is working behind a common way of engaging with the customer. So Impact Selling does cover the entire sales process, from the investigate step, prospecting, all the way through to tied up the close. So if you're interested in having your team up their sales game, and possibly even including a few marketing people to help them align with sales, feel free to email contact@thebrooksgroup.com, and producer Rich is going to put that in our chat box for more information. And we have built virtual instructor-led sessions every month. And as Russ mentioned at the beginning of our time today, we are also bringing back in-person training. We have a session in June and in August. So whatever fits your team best, we can accommodate.
All right. And by the way, if questions come up through our presentation, either use the Q&A button or the chat to ask those, and we will address them as possible. I love this image because marketing and sales really are a common animal with two different directions. And depending upon where you sit, usually you feel like one department is starved and the other department gets all the budget, right? So one's really well fed and the other one isn't. And I think that at the highest level, my experience, and I've worked in these areas for 35 plus years, they all have the same charter. The biggest challenge usually is alignment in terms, as Michelle's already gone through, but also timing, right? Salespeople are very driven to a month or a quarter, and marketing can very easily drift away. She talked about sort of the corporate market being branding, et cetera. I think what you've seen over the last 5 to 10 years is really this idea of field marketing or a product marketing organization that is really more closely aligned with sales and really focused on driving leads. And that's what we're going to talk about is how do we really drive leads? How do we drive opportunities? And we're going to talk, or I'm going to talk about kind of the ways I see that happening across all channels. It's not just web. It can be telephone calls, email, working inside existing customers. At some point, events will return, and we'll be talking about those, print advertising, whatever it might be. One of the just quickest recommendations I'll pass along to you, the last time that I was in this role, we had a conversation between the person who ran our marketing mailing list and our sales team, and just said, are all of the business cards you've collected in the last 18 months a part of our mail list? And the answer was no. And so they ran copies, we loaded them into the system, we got permissions as was necessary, but it nearly doubled the size of the mail list. And something just as simple as having a better mail list can really help you as you seek to reach out and to drive more business. For us, our mail list got through 2 different mailings. We can go into the details on that some other time. About a 30% open rate, got a pretty significant click-through rate. So doubling the number of names on that list, double the number of people who were exposed to new products or new case studies, et cetera, et cetera. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the ready, aim, fire portion of it. My experience is that while we believe putting both sales and marketing under one leader is good, it struggles for most organizations. And the reason for that is that whoever runs a sales and marketing organization is going to be judged primarily on their sales numbers. And so having sat in that seat, I recognize that over time, you spent less and less time thinking about the marketing function and more time about the opportunities that you had to drive. I used to say I used to have about a week to maybe a week and a half at the beginning of the quarter where I had bandwidth. And then after that, it all became about how do I close the deals? How do I make it happen? And so I just think from a structural perspective, it does make sense to have 2 leaders, but they have to work very closely together. They've got to have well-defined roles in terms of not only who does what, but how are they going to interact? Michelle talked about communication being a real issue. And sometimes the senior people in organizations work well together, but the people further down don't. And so you've got to make sure there's lots of cross-pollination, lots of opportunities for conversation both directions. That especially includes the lead generation function. I remember early in my career, we were doing a lot of advertising. And if in those days, in magazines, people would circle a number on a card in the back of the magazine and mail it into the company. And our salespeople were just totally disregarding those leads. And that became useful. And the answer was they were not worth much. And so they prioritized those out. And that caused us to think, well, maybe magazine advertising isn't the right place to go to do that. But it wasn't until we asked, we didn't hear that that was happening. You need to be really focused on what are the targets you're going to get, who are the best customers, and talk through those and recognize that there's both a best customer list in terms of who's buying your products today and potentially a who you want to be buying your products tomorrow. And so this is one area where there can be some disagreement. There needs to be work in terms of balance. Yes, we may sell totally into one market today, but corporately, if we're going to reach our sales goals for the year or for next year, we've got to expand into another market. So how do you balance that? And that only comes through conversations. And then what are the titles? Who are we really looking for in those particular cases? At the Brooks Group, we sell training, and sometimes it's to the sales leader, sometimes it's to whoever is over the learning and development groups. And so we're always looking at what's the best balance and what's the right message for each of those, because they're looking for things that are slightly different. Sometimes marketing can get way too far ahead and talking about markets and talking to markets that are months or years before we can deliver product. Sometimes sales organizations think, I'm busy right now with kind of the people I'm calling on, and so I don't really have the need for new opportunities. And so there has to be communication back and forth to make sure that that continues. One of the best ways, Michelle talked about communication, that I've seen, invite your marketing people to sit in on your weekly sales calls. What are people hearing? What are the issues that customers are having? And then marketing can adapt those kind of messages to really speak to the issues that they're having in reality, not from just sort of a theoretical perspective. The other thing that really focuses here is you've got to make sure you're getting insights and data. A/B testing just is, does this work better than this? Does this message work better than that? Try to figure out what your customers are responding to. And then share learnings. What are the salespeople seeing at this moment? What's marketing seeing and communicating back? And together kind of have that strategy. And that either can be at a high level, or you can have representatives between the marketing and sales team work together on new market entry and how do we tune our messages for that. I think that the real critical thing through all of this, though, is if we're going to do an outbound lead campaign, there needs to be some sort of calculation done in terms of what's the right number of leads that we need to make quota. And it starts from, what is the percent of new business we expect to get this year, back to what are the conversion rates at each of the sales step processes, which drives us ultimately to a number per week that we need to be generating. And I find in a lot of the organizations I work with, they haven't really thought through what that number is. They haven't thought through what their conversion from raw to marketing to opportunity to close are. And that's really one of the areas where sales process comes into play. And if you do that, and it's fairly simple math, you can understand on a week by week basis, am I tracking to plan or am I not? And my sense is when I've led sales organizations and we miss numbers, it's usually because we don't have enough in the pipeline. It's usually not something that happens at the end of the month or the end of the quarter. It's how much am I filling in the top of the pipeline that's good quality that I can work all the way through. So when you go to fire, when you execute the plan, here's a few metrics that I think are important. And you should measure the conversion rate, or what percent of leads move from A to B. Raw leads to what's typically known as a marketing qualified lead, meaning that marketing has looked at it and it appears it fits. It's an industry that you serve. If you're a business to business company, you're moving out those business to consumer leads that don't fit, or vice versa. Screening out maybe those that are in geographic markets that you don't work in. If you're a North American company, for example, you may not want to be receiving leads from Europe or from South America. For marketing, there's then some work that goes on, marketing qualified lead, work that goes on to make it a sales accepted lead. That's when sales says, yes, we'll take it. There's been a conversation, or there's been something that says we will pursue this as a lead. That then becomes an opportunity. They're sometimes called sales qualified leads. And then you can look to see what percent of those opportunities ultimately go to closed win. And there's two actions. One, you can look back through the funnel to see if all of the leads that you're generating are being acted upon in the right time. And can you improve any of those rates? Sometimes I've seen organizations where salespeople are saturated. They are as busy as they can be. And so to generate more leads isn't helping them. What they need is some help improving the conversion rates, or maybe just more hands in which to close leads. And then the other part here is just really a lot of focus on how quickly can you respond. It makes no sense to generate interest and then not follow up on it. Some data that was out this week from a company called Intendata, they said that 84% of the organizations they surveyed are looking to increase, that is, decrease the amount of time it takes to respond to a lead. That over 3/4 of those, 76, almost 77%, today are able to get back to a lead within 24 hours, but that over half of them, 55%, say they really want to get back to a lead within 5 minutes. And that's been our experience, that especially for web generated leads, when someone chats and requests something, not a chat, but they just submit the form, the faster you can get back to them, the better. And it requires that, therefore, you think about what's our strategy to be able to do that. In my time, I've seen it done in-house. Sometimes you give it to field sales and they have ownership of that. You can have a dedicated, say, business development rep or team that's following up on those leads right away. I've also had good success with outsourcing that functionality to be able to do the first pass qualifying to then hand off to sales. And there's usually some debate and internal struggles over ownership. So you start kind of slow. But I will tell you, in the times in my career, and I think I've done it 3 specific times where we've outsourced that function. If you train the people who are being outsourced well, if you have a good organization, every single time my sales team has come back as soon as somebody finds a lead and said, here, take some more of my leads. Here, help me work with my the accounts that are not active right now in my territory. Because they recognize their greatest leverage is being in front of accounts who are ready to buy. If somebody else can do that nurturing and that farming, it really pays off. So if you want some more conversation around sort of what I've seen happening with outsource, drop a chat message or ask a question. We can follow up a little bit more on that. Another metric, or 2 more metrics I didn't put up here. One is customer long-term value. Part of your focusing is, where do I want to go and how much payback do I get from the leads that I've got? And then customer acquisition costs. How much do you really want to spend to get a lead based on where long-term value is? And it's one of the reasons why I think trade shows were in trouble before the pandemic. You saw more and more large companies in the industries I've been a part of pull out. I had a great conversation one time on an airplane with a VP of one of the largest telecom companies in the US at the time. And I said, do you attend this trade show? And he said, no. He said, you have to realize that any vendor in the world, if I called and said, I want to see you in 48 hours, would put a sales team in my office within 48 hours. He goes, so why should I go to a trade show? And I think you're going to see that. I think you'll still have association and smaller group gatherings, but I think the big trade show events we've been seeing are going to have a hard time coming back from this pandemic. Again, personal opinion. And then the last piece is just, we always want to be seeking more bullseyes. We want to make sure that we're continuing to focus. And here's some of the best practices that we have around this. I'll call it ABC, always be clarifying. Every week we take a look at the numbers that we're generating at these various rates, the metrics I mentioned before. Every month we do a deep dive. Our conversion rates different for certain industries as opposed to others. Our conversion rates that go to a certain title different than others. And we're really trying to understand what's the most efficient and effective way for us to introduce ourselves and to engage with companies. The sales funnel, the sales process are both critical in this. Being able to walk back through and saying, am I generating what looks to be a nice smooth funnel? Are things moving through it quickly? Or are the marketing qualified leads only a small percentage of those becoming the sales accepted leads? And if so, what can I do to tune that so that I'm getting better, getting marketing leads? Or if I'm getting everything through the process and getting hung up on the close, from moving it from opportunity to close one. Is there some content that I need to be able to do that? Once in my career, we were selling a very technical product, and we could make the case in terms of how we were a better benefit in terms of overall cost of operation and the ability to recruit staff to use it for the use of video over our product. But we didn't arm the sales organization with that. So they were sending people from home office. They're asking home office people to come out and do the presentations. And so it became a session of, boy, the right tool here should shorten our sales cycle and really help communicate more. And that was, again, brought up through conversation between sales and marketing. And then once you've got this process, you can deal with what I call specials and sprints. Specials is when you've got a brand new product or some kind of an upgrade that you really want to put a push on. You know exactly where the right levers are to make that happen. And sprints are when you fall behind. If you understand the number of leads you need to generate per week and you've missed that for 3 weeks in a row, how do you put together a combined marketing and sales effort to really get focused in on those leads so that you're not going to have sales droughts, shall we say, down the pipeline, however long your sales cycle time is. So those are just some of the things that I have seen that have helped. And I guess one other thing I'd mention, Michelle's organization, our Sales Performance Research Center, actually has some diagnostics and tools. If you're feeling like, boy, we could be better aligned between our sales group and our marketing group and even customer service, or maybe even executives, they have some tools, and we would be glad to talk to you about how you could look inside your organization, see where there's areas of disconnect, and begin to address those. That's the material we've got. We'll open it up for questions and see if anyone has any thoughts or anything they'd like to know more about.
And Russ, just to reiterate what you said there on the diagnostic tools, we are happy to work with organizations and really just help them get a baseline assessment of their sales function, their sales and marketing function, where the gaps are, what they're doing well, because obviously if we can point out what you're doing well, you can do more of that as well. So
yeah, and the point here is, it's like going to the doctor, right? If you're not feeling well, you need a diagnosis.
right.
And the diagnosis gives you then a treatment plan. If you're not sure if you know that you don't feel good, but you don't know what the issues are, it's really hard to start treatment. So that's the benefit of that tool. Just kind of to wrap up, our immediate best practices, start the conversation. Where are we? Have group conversations at various levels in your organization to be able to understand kind of what each team is getting from and needing from the other. Define really what the best leads are. If you're old enough to remember, you want the Glengarry leads here. Those that really pay off, according to Jack Lemmon. If you don't know the reference, Google it. Agree on the metrics and the response rates that you're looking for, so that you know that as you bring leads into the organization, there can be some kind of a reasonable scale. You're not going to saturate the sales team if they don't have time to respond, or you're going to make sure you've got enough so that you don't starve them. Track all opportunities using the sales funnel. Look at your metrics. Look deeper into the funnel than just close rates, and then use feedback to continually tighten up all your definitions, your metrics, and especially your spend. Because especially as we come back from the pandemic, I think some of those things that used to work to generate leads are going to change and shift. And you want to make sure you're putting those marketing dollars and sales time into the right places.
Well, thank you very much, Russ. That was some great information. And again, for anyone that's interested in more information on impact selling, be sure to email us at contact@thebrooksgroup.com, and look for more information on our next virtual happy half hour coming up in your email inboxes.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.